Hey everyone, I'm so grateful you're here with us today. I'm Jay Shetty, and today we are diving deep into a conversation that I know so many of you have been feeling in your hearts but haven't found the words for yet. Thought focus on a powerful shift. Teach him the price of ignoring you vertical bar. Know your worth, walk away powerfully. This isn't about games, it's about your growth. If this resonates with you, or if you know someone who needs to hear this message of self-love today, please do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Encouraging, it helps us grow this conscious community and ensures you never miss a step on your journey toward wisdom. Now, let's get into it. Imagine you are pouring water into a glass that has a hole in the bottom. You're giving your energy, your time, your late night thoughts, and your deepest vulnerability. You watch the water rise for a second, feeling hopeful, only to see it drain away until the glass is empty again. You're exhausted, you're parched, and yet you keep pouring, thinking that if you just pour faster or more, the hole will somehow plug itself. We've all been there. We've all stayed in rooms where our presence wasn't celebrated, only tolerated. We've all sent that third text, waited for that call that never came, or dimmed our light so someone else wouldn't feel blinded by it. But here is the truth we often ignore. Attention is the currency of the soul. When you give it to someone who doesn't respect it, you aren't being patient, you are bankrupting yourself. Most people think that to teach someone a lesson, you have to shout, you have to argue, you have to explain your worth until you're blue in the face. But the most powerful lesson isn't taught through words. It's taught through absence. In the next few minutes, we aren't just talking about playing hard to get. That's a game. And games are for people who aren't ready for growth. We are talking about the price of ignoring you. We are talking about the moment you stop being an option and start being a boundary. If you have ever felt invisible in your own relationship or like you're a secondary character in your own life, you cannot afford to turn away. Because by the end of this, you won't just know how to walk away, you'll know how to walk toward the person you were always meant to be. My friends, there is a profound difference between being available and being accessible. Think about a sunset. It is one of the most beautiful experiences on earth. But it doesn't wait for you. If you aren't there to witness it, it happens anyway, and then it's gone. It doesn't beg for your attention. It doesn't ask you to look at it. It simply is beautiful, and if you miss it, that is your loss, not the sun's. When someone ignores you, they are making a bet. They are betting that you don't have the courage to exist without them. They are betting that your self-worth is so tied to their validation that you will stay in the hallway, knocking on a door that they've clearly locked. But today, we change the bet. The moment you realize that your presence is a gift, your absence becomes a consequence. We often think that by walking away, we are losing someone. I want you to shift that perspective. You aren't losing them, you are returning them to the version of life that doesn't include you. And if they didn't value you while you were there, let them experience the reality of your space being empty. Don't announce your departure. Don't post a quote on social media hoping they'll see it. Don't have one last big talk. A lion doesn't have to tell the forest it's leaving. The forest just feels the shift in the atmosphere. When you walk away powerfully, you aren't doing it to hurt them. You're doing it to heal you. You are saying, I love myself more than I love the idea of you loving me. That is the highest form of spiritual maturity. The price of ignoring you is the loss of the most vibrant, supportive, and conscious version of you. And trust me, once they see you thriving in your own light, without needing their permission to shine, they will realize they didn't just ignore a person, they ignored a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Stay mindful, stay focused, and most importantly, stay true to your own worth. The mirror principle is perhaps the most difficult spiritual pill to swallow because it places the power and the responsibility squarely back into your own hands. We often spend our lives waiting for a fair world, a world where if we are kind, people are kind back, if we are loyal, people stay, and if we are loving, we are loved in return. But the universe doesn't always reflect your intentions. It reflects your standards. When we talk about people ignoring you or devaluing you, we have to look at the energetic price tag we have placed upon ourselves. Imagine walking into a high-end boutique. You see a watch or a handbag behind a glass case. There is a specific lighting, a specific way the staff carries themselves, and a price tag that commands respect. You don't walk in and try to haggle for half off because the environment and the presentation have already dictated the value. Now imagine that same watch sitting in a pile of junk at a garage sale covered in dust. Even though it is the exact same object with the same internal mechanics, people will try to buy it for pennies. They aren't judging the watch. They are responding to how the watch is being presented. This is the mirror principle in action. If you allow someone to ignore your text for days and then jump for joy the moment they finally grace you with a hey, you are telling them that your time is a bargain bin item. You are demonstrating that your attention is always available, regardless of how you are treated. You are holding up a mirror to them that says, my worth is negotiable. We think that by being endlessly understanding and flexible, we are showing them how much we love them. In reality, we are showing them how little we respect ourselves. And here is the hard truth. People cannot love you more than you love yourself, and they certainly won't respect you more than you respect yourself. They are simply following the lead you have provided. When you stop accepting breadcrumbs, you signal to the world that you are a full meal. This isn't about arrogance or being difficult. It's about clarity. It's about realizing that if you treat your heart like a common area where anyone can walk in with muddy shoes, you can't be surprised when the carpet is stained. The mirror principle requires you to look inward and ask, what version of me am I introducing to this person? Are you introducing the version that is terrified of being alone? The version that feels they have to earn love through constant service and silence? If that is the version you lead with, the other person will naturally step into the role of the one who takes. They aren't necessarily a bad person, but they are responding to the energetic boundaries or lack thereof that you have set. To change the way they treat you, you have to change the reflection in the mirror. You have to start treating your own peace as an expensive luxury. When you start saying no to things that drain you, when you stop over-explaining yourself to people who aren't listening, and when you choose your own company over poor company, the reflection changes. The person standing across from you suddenly sees a different price tag. They realize that the old discounts are gone. They realize that to have access to you, they must meet you at the level of the new mirror you've created. You don't have to shout at them to change. You simply have to change the way you value the soul staring back at you in the mirror every morning. Silence as a boundary is one of the most misunderstood tools in the human emotional toolkit, because we have been conditioned to believe that communication is the only way to solve a problem. We are told that if we just find the right words, the right tone, or the right analogy, the other person will finally get it. We exhaust ourselves in a cycle of over-explaining, essentially handing over the blueprint of our soul to someone who isn't even interested in building a house with us. But there comes a point where words become a form of self-betrayal. When you continue to speak to someone who has shown you through their actions that they are not listening, you are not communicating, you are pleading. Silence is the moment you stop pleading. It is the moment you realize that your voice is a gift, and like any gift, it should not be cast before those who do not value it. This isn't about the silent treatment, which is a manipulative tactic used to hurt or control someone else. Silence as a boundary is an internal shift. It is about the silent withdrawal of your energy. It is the quiet, calm realization that you no longer have the desire to argue for your place in someone else's life. When you use silence as a boundary, you are reclaiming the massive amount of mental and emotional real estate that you've been letting someone else occupy for free. Think about how much energy it takes to be angry, to wonder why they haven't called, to draft a long paragraph in your notes app that you're too afraid to send, or to replay a conversation 1,000 times to see where you went wrong. That is energy leaking out of your life. It is fuel that could be used for your purpose, your health, or your joy, but instead, it is being poured into a void. Silence is the plug-in, that leak. It is you saying, I am no longer going to use my life force to try and bridge a gap that you are choosing to keep wide. There is a profound power in the silence that follows a period of being undervalued. It creates a space where the other person is finally forced to sit with their own choices. As long as you are talking, explaining, and reacting, you are providing a distraction for them. You are giving them a reason to focus on your neediness or your intensity rather than their own neglect. When you go silent, the distraction is removed. They are left alone in the room with their own behavior. This silence is not loud or aggressive. It is heavy. It is the weight of your absence. Most people are afraid of this silence because they fear it will lead to the end of the relationship. And it might. But you have to ask yourself what you are truly holding on to if the only thing keeping the connection alive is your constant noise and effort. Silence is a diagnostic tool. It shows you the health of a connection. If a relationship collapses, the moment you stop carrying the heavy end of the conversation, then it wasn't a partnership. It was a solo mission. By choosing silence, you are choosing to observe rather than to absorb. You are stepping back to see if the other person values the space you occupied enough to try and fill it. If they don't, then the silence has given you the clearest answer you will ever receive. It is the ultimate act of self-respect to stop talking when you are not being heard. It is a declaration that your inner peace is more important than being understood by someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You are choosing to save your breath for the people who cherish your whisper rather than wasting your shout on those who ignore your heart. The luxury of access is a concept that requires us to shift our perspective from seeing ourselves as seekers of validation to seeing ourselves as the prize of our own lives. In our modern world, we have become far too comfortable with being available to everyone at all times. We carry our notifications in our pockets. We respond to demands on our time within seconds, and we feel a sense of guilt if we aren't constantly on for the people around us. But when you treat your access as a common commodity, you shouldn't be surprised when people treat it with common indifference. Think about the difference between a public park and a private sanctuary. A public park is open to everyone. People walk through it, they leave their trash behind, and they don't feel a personal responsibility to maintain its beauty because they didn't have to earn the right to be there. A sanctuary, however, requires an invitation. It requires a level of respect and a shared understanding of its sacredness. Your heart, your time, and your emotional energy must be treated as a sanctuary, not a public park. When someone ignores you, they are essentially saying that they no longer value the subscription to your life. In any other context, if you stop paying for a service, the service is disconnected. If you stop respecting the rules of a club, your membership is revoked. Why should the access to your soul be any different? We often make the mistake of keeping the door open for people who have clearly stopped walking through it with intention. We leave the light on, hoping they'll notice, while we sit in the dark waiting for them. But the luxury of access means that your presence is a high-ticket item. It costs something to be in your inner circle. It costs consistency, it costs integrity, and it costs genuine care. If someone is unwilling to pay that price, they simply lose the privilege of your company. This isn't about being expensive in a material sense. It's about being expensive in an energetic sense. It means that your yes has weight because you are willing to say no. It means that when you give someone your attention, they know they are receiving something valuable because you don't give it away to just anyone who asks for it. When someone ignores you, they are effectively defaulting on their payment of respect. Instead of chasing them for the debt, you must simply close the account. You must realize that by allowing them continued access to your thoughts, your worries, and your physical presence, you are devaluing the very thing you want them to cherish. You have to be willing to be a limited edition. Not everyone is meant to have a front row seat to your growth, your struggles, or your triumphs. Some people are only meant to see you from the cheap seats, and some aren't meant to be in the stadium at all. When you start viewing your access as a luxury, you stop feeling the need to explain why you're pulling away. You don't need to justify why you're no longer answering the phone at 2 a.m. or why you're not sharing your deepest dreams with someone who met them with silence last time. You are simply adjusting your inventory based on the market of respect. If the market is low, the luxury item is withdrawn from the shelf. This creates a standard that protects you from being drained. It teaches people that being in your life is an honor that must be maintained, not a right that can be abused. When you truly embody this, you stop mourning the people who walk away, because you know that your stock only rises when you stop selling yourself short to people who don't know your worth. Walking versus running is the fundamental distinction between a person who is reacting to pain and a person who is responding with power. When we are hurt, ignored, or devalued, our natural instinct is often to run. Running is fueled by adrenaline, panic, and the desperate need to escape a feeling of rejection. When you run away from someone, you are often looking back over your shoulder to see if they are chasing you. You are running with the secret hope that they will grab your arm and beg you to stay. But running is an erratic energy. It is noisy, it is breathless, and it signals to the other person that they still hold the remote control to your emotions. Walking away, however, is a completely different frequency. Walking is a rhythmic, intentional, and composed movement. It is the physical manifestation of a settled soul. When you walk away, your eyes are fixed firmly on the horizon of your own future, not on the wreckage of the past. You aren't leaving to elicit a reaction. You are leaving because the environment no longer sustains your growth. The power of the steady stride lies in its finality. When someone sees you running, they think they can catch you. They think that with enough effort or the right words, they can reel you back in, because your exit is based on a temporary emotional explosion. But when someone watches you walk away with calmness and dignity, they feel the weight of a permanent decision. They realize that you aren't mad because anger is still a form of attachment. They realize that you are done, and being done is the most powerful position you can hold. Walking away powerfully means you have processed the grief of the relationship while you were still in it. It means you have already done the heavy lifting of realizing your worth. So by the time your feet start moving, the decision is already a part of your DNA. You aren't slamming doors or screaming into the void. You are simply removing your presence from a space that didn't know what to do with it. This composure is what teaches the other person the true price of their ignorance. It shows them that your peace is not a bargaining chip and that your self-respect is not up for debate. To walk away powerfully, you must embrace the silence of the journey. You don't need to explain the why for the 100th time. If they didn't understand your words when you were standing right in front of them, they certainly won't understand them as you are leaving. Your movement is the explanation. Every step you take away from a toxic or indifferent situation is a step toward a version of yourself that is whole and unfragmented. It is a transition from being a victim of someone else's neglect to being the architect of your own atmosphere. People who run are often trying to outrun their own shadows, but people who walk are comfortable in their own skin. They know that wherever they go, they are taking their value with them. This steady pace creates a vacuum of respect that the other person can finally feel. It is the difference between a frantic exit and a royal departure. You are moving with the grace of someone who knows that the best parts of their life are still ahead of them, and that staying in a place where you are ignored is simply a waste of a good pair of shoes. When you walk, you reclaim your breath, you reclaim your rhythm, and most importantly, you reclaim the direction of your life without needing an audience to applaud your departure. The vacuum effect is a spiritual and psychological law that dictates that life abhors a void. Whenever you create empty space, the universe is under a structural obligation to fill it. We often hold on to toxic relationships, dead-end situations, and people who ignore our worth because we are terrified of the nothingness that follows. We stay in rooms where we are invisible because we think that being ignored is better than being alone. But what we don't realize is that by holding on to a person who doesn't value us, we are physically and energetically occupying the space that belongs to the person who will. You only have so much room in your heart, so many hours in your day, and so much emotional bandwidth in your soul. If 90% of your mental energy is spent wondering why someone hasn't texted you back or analyzing their cold behavior, you have 0% available to notice the new opportunity, the new friend, or the new passion that is trying to enter your life. You are essentially standing in a doorway, blocking your own blessings because you are too busy staring at a wall that refuses to move. When you finally pull your energy back, when you stop calling, stop checking, and stop caring about their opinion, you create a massive vacuum. At first, that vacuum feels like loneliness. It feels like a hollow ache in your chest. But that ache is actually the sound of space being cleared. It is the sound of the old stagnant air leaving the room so that fresh oxygen can rush in. You cannot invite a high-value connection into a cluttered life. You have to be brave enough to sit in the quiet of the vacuum for a moment. This is where the real transformation happens. In that silence, you start to hear your own voice again. You start to remember the hobbies you dropped, the dreams you silenced, and the self-care you neglected while you were busy trying to earn someone else's attention. The vacuum effect is the universe's way of rewarding your courage. The moment you prove that you would rather have nothing than disrespect, the quality of what the universe sends you begins to shift. You start attracting people who operate on your new frequency. People who don't need to be taught the price of ignoring you because they are too busy celebrating the value of knowing you. This effect also works on the person you left behind. When you were constantly there, providing them with validation and effort, despite their neglect, you were the filler in their life. You were the safety net that allowed them to be lazy and disrespectful without ever feeling the consequence of losing you. When you remove yourself, you create a vacuum in asterisk. Their asterisk life too. Suddenly the silence you left behind is deafening. They look for the comfort you provided, the ego boost you gave them, and the warmth you radiated, only to find nothing but cold air. This is often when people try to come back, not because they've changed, but because they realize the vacuum is uncomfortable. But by then, you should be so busy filling your own space with self-love, purpose, and genuine connections that there is no longer any room for their mediocrity. You must trust the clearing process. Don't rush to fill the void with the first person who shows interest just to escape the stillness. Let the vacuum do its work. Let it filter out the noise and the pretenders. When you respect the space you've created, you ensure that whatever fills it next is worthy of the person you've become. You aren't just walking away from someone. You are walking into the open space of your own potential.